I boarded an intercity bus to return from my aunt's house to our house. I spent the last weeks of summer at their house. I didn't like to go home by intercity bus. But my mom was busy and couldn't follow me, so I had no choice but to come by bus. I sat in the last seats next to one of the windows. There were not many passengers, so I listened to music so that I wouldn't get bored. The sun had set and the air was gradually getting darker and darker while the bus was shaking a lot. I thought it was normal, but suddenly the bus engine made a very bad noise and stopped working. The driver pushed the bus aside and got off to see what the problem was. After about 10 minutes, they manipulated its engine. He said, "The bus has a technical problem, and we have to wait for the repairman." He was very nervous when he called the repairman. He said, "I just repaired this bus. Why did it break down again?" And from these words, it was completely dark. It was around 9 o'clock in the evening, and we were stuck in the middle of a place without water and grass. The passengers were worried and restless. I was looking outside and listening to music on the hands-free and not paying attention to the inside of the bus. When I stopped staring outside, I looked at the front of the bus and saw two suspicious strangers. That a woman and a man with a strange appearance and completely black clothes, the driver, whose bus had broken down in the middle and had no nerves. He stopped them and said, "You can't enter." The woman begged him to let her in until they board because the weather is very cold. The driver also doubted that they had drawn everyone's attention to themselves. Until the driver let them ride, I had a bad feeling for them. They looked around a lot. It was obvious that they were looking for something or someone. The woman sat next to one of the passengers and said, "What a beautiful backpack you have." I can see that the traveler was very surprised. He started to describe his backpack and its material. But that woman, who didn't care about their words at all, opened the zipper. To see its interior, the passenger said, "What are you doing?" The woman said, "I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I just wanted to see the inside." The man was going through the belongings of the other passengers at the same moment. I, who understood that they had no good intentions, was scared and had hidden myself behind the seat in front of me. The passengers were extremely upset and angry with the turbulent behavior and careless search of that man and woman in their belongings. They protested and demanded to stop this work. This caused a verbal conflict and shouting between them and the passengers. Finally, the driver had to intervene and kicked them out of the bus. I was at the bottom of the bus, terrified and anxious, just watching this incident. But that man did not like the words of the driver and attacked him with anger. And the woman called the man and said, "What are you doing, you fool? We are only looking for that backpack." And the woman separated them, and their fight ended. And the driver sat on his seat, and the woman angrily turned to the passengers and said, "Listen to what I'm saying. We're just looking for a black backpack. If we find it, we'll leave here quickly." His words made me even more afraid, because my backpack was also black. Don't make a mistake that they mean my bag. My heart rate was high and my hands and feet were shaking. I was afraid of what would happen to me if they found my bag. My anxiety had reached its peak. Suddenly my mobile phone slipped from my hand and fell on the floor. Its loud voice drew the woman's attention to me. He glared at me and then came towards me. When he reached me, his eyes fell on my backpack. He slowly reached for my backpack. In one quick motion, I put my hand on the backpack and said, "No, I won't." The woman frowned and said, "Why? Isn't it your backpack?" "Yes, but I won't let you open it," I said. "What are you going to do if I open it?" he said menacingly. "Whatever it takes," I said. He took a backpack from my hand and opened its zippers and threw out all the things. Meanwhile, the man with the woman came close to us and looked around. When the woman was putting away my things, the man said, "I found it. It's here, under this chair." The seat that the man pointed to was behind my seat. The woman quickly went to that chair and looked under it. After a few moments, he happily said, "Yes, that's it. Here is our backpack." The man and woman happily picked up their backpacks and got off the bus. I was staring at them, trembling with fear and stress. When they left, other passengers approached me and calmed me down. I was still confused. I didn't know why they were looking for my backpack and why they gave up on me when they found theirs. Whatever was inside that backpack remained a mystery. The bus was repaired and we set off. I kept thinking about that man and woman until I got home. I didn't know what their intentions were and why they were looking for a black backpack. It was around 6 p.m. and my shift had just ended. Since I don't have a car, I rely on the bus to get home after leaving my workplace. I headed to the bus stop, where as usual it took about half an hour for the bus to arrive. I usually pass the time by reading the newspaper, so I pulled out my newspaper and started reading. At the bus stop there was a lady standing, and we were the only ones there. I hadn't seen her before. While my head was buried in the newspaper, I noticed she was staring at me. It seemed like she had been watching me for a while without my realization. I was surprised and asked her if everything was okay. She didn't seem to notice me before and waved her hand. She sat down and I introduced myself. She said her name was Sophia and we started chatting. I realized that she was introverted and didn't interact much with others. She constantly looked around as if she was afraid someone would come near her or as if she had escaped from somewhere. I smiled and asked if she was waiting for someone, and she again nervously looked around saying she was a bit anxious. Just as she was about to speak, the bus arrived. We both got on and I took a seat by the window. Sophia asked if she could sit next to me and I gladly agreed. As the bus was about to start, a middle-aged man with messy hair and a slightly overweight appearance entered. After seeing Sophia, he approached and greeted her saying, "Hello, Sophia, it's been a long time." Sophia looked at him with a mixture of surprise and fear, asking who he was. The man replied, "I am someone you're afraid of. I just want to talk to you." Sophia tried to stand up, but the man held her back. He insisted he only wanted to talk and that he wasn't crazy. Sophia, feeling threatened, shouted for him to stay away. I got up and asked the man what he was doing, trying to calm the situation. The bus driver hit the brakes, causing a shock to everyone. Passengers along with the bus driver supported Sophia and the man was forced out of the bus. Sophia, still in shock, thanked everyone. The man shouted that the woman was his wife, but Sophia denied it, crying. As Sophia got off the bus, I followed to ensure no further issues arose. The bus driver offered to call the police, but another passenger mentioned they had already contacted the authorities. Upon the man's arrest and hearing Sophia's story, it was revealed that he wasn't Sophia's husband. He was just an acquaintance who knew Sophia and wanted to be with her. However, Sophia detested him and didn't want to believe his intentions were harmless. In the early morning, I woke up to the sound of the alarm clock. The weather was cloudy and it was raining. Despite the sleepiness, I quickly got ready to go to school. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, and my mom had prepared breakfast. After eating breakfast, I got into the car and my mom drove me to school and then headed to work. My mom suggested that I take the bus back home. Without saying much, I agreed. School was as usual monotonous and repetitive. When I left, I had forgotten to bring an umbrella and I got wet in the rain on the way to the bus stop. I waited for the bus, and when it arrived, an odd man was sitting at the back. He was silently peeling an apple with a knife, a large knife not just for peeling the skin but much larger than ordinary kitchen knives. There was no other place to sit except beside him, so reluctantly I chose to sit there. The strange man was looking out the window peeling the apple. Trying to ignore him, I focused on reading my book, hoping he would lose interest. Suddenly his hand reached towards me, holding a piece of the apple. He coughed and said, "Have a bite, little girl." I declined politely, but he smiled and ate the apple himself. I turned away, pretending not to notice. He was an older man dressed in dirty and wrinkled clothes. I suspected he might be under the influence of alcohol. I didn't want to sit close to him, but there was no available seat. I waited for the next station, hoping to find a place to move to, but no seats became vacant. So, I waited until the next station where passengers might get off and provide me with a chance to change my seat. Suddenly, the man stood up, revealing that he had cut his own finger. As I looked at him, he wiped the blood, laughed, and seemed amused by his own action. I felt a chill down my spine. I stood up and walked to the front of the bus to distance myself from him. However, he continued to stare at me from the back. I was stressed trying to remain calm, but he was unsettling. Eventually, he got up and concealed his knife under his clothes. Terrified, I tried to seek help from others, but they seemed oblivious to my distress. The bus stopped, and even though one more station remained until my home, I decided to get off. Unfortunately, the strange man followed me. It was pouring rain, and I increased my pace attempting to get away from him. My bad luck was that his destination was this station. I thought to myself, I wish I hadn't gotten off. I walked briskly, and he was still following. The rain intensified, and I tried to get further away, but he was getting closer and closer. My heart raced. The situation was dire. I stumbled, fell to the ground, and as I looked back, the peculiar man was approaching. I screamed for help, attracting the attention of those around. People got out of their cars and rushed to assist me. After the crowd gathered, the man seemed to vanish. I recounted the incident to those present, but there was no trace of the man.